Mic'd up.
Where's the music? No music. No mas. We're going to play it? Here it is. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Yankees Coast to Coast with your host, Michael Schneider and Adam Miller. Oops, I'm sorry, I mixed that up. Adam Schneider, Michael Miller. Nice to meet you all. 8 of you out there. We have some new folks. I've actually gotten a couple of calls from people who are telling me that they are now listeners or watchers or whatever they are. So we want to welcome all the old and the new. Welcome to the show. We are happy to have you. How's it going, Mike?
Here's the deal. If you want to leave us a message, please do so. Using the microphone at the bottom of the page, you can leave a 30-second message or 37 30-second messages. We welcome them all, and we will get to them all today. I can guarantee it. The other thing you should know is that when we post our shows, you can leave a message even before our shows are live, because you can comment on our topic.
And also, don't forget to tell people we're on YouTube. So
yes, we're on YouTube. We are on YouTube under Yankees Coast to Coast, and we welcome all the YouTube viewership we can have. We did have a good week on YouTube viewership, just so you know.
We had 3 people who came to one.
No, that's not true. Very proud. Better than that. We did better than that. Weisenheimer. Well, we did pretty good. We even got a comment from somebody.
People who have nothing else to do. I mean, nothing.
Well, there's no Yankee game tonight. What more do these guys want?
I appreciate it a lot. I really do. Thank you so much for everybody. And what are we going to talk about today? It's been an interesting week. Yankees won. How about that?
Well, our topic for today is, will the Yankees be celebrated or will they be the Tankies? What is fantasy? What is reality for this 24 Yankee team? And today and yesterday pretty much showed us it's a 2-man team, but we'll talk about it. That's for sure. They did win today. Cole pitched well again. That's 3 in a row.
Yeah, he did, but he walked 5. So I'm wondering what's going on with the walks.
Yeah, well, 1 hit, so you can't.
Yeah, I mean, if he keeps his whip at at 1, I mean, that's great. He pitched 6 innings. He had 6 base runners. I mean, that's not a terrible game. It's just I'm wondering why. Think about that's something that he's known for, his control. So you got to think. I know if they talk to him, that's what he's going to say. He's going to, I don't know what's wrong with my control. I'm not doing it, but anyway, still happy to see him back in the.
I did think he was going to get tossed today in the 2nd inning when he had that.
What happened? I wasn't watching that.
Oh, so Wells made the last out in the inning, and as such, he was a little slower getting out to the field, and they didn't let Cole finish his warm-ups. He threw an extra warm-up pitch after he was told not to so that Wells could throw it down to second, and they gave him a pitch clock violation for a ball. He got into an argument with the umpire. Boone had to come out, and then after the inning over, he was screaming at the umpire from the dugout. And being the creature of habit that he is, God forbid that he has a toenail out of place, he gets all out of sorts. So it is what it is.
That's his thing.
Well, he pitched effectively today. You can't complain.
This is the guy who wasn't happy with Billy Crystal throwing out the first pitch at a home opener a couple of years ago.
I mean, I couldn't have imagined what he would have done last night at the Democratic Convention when Clinton decided to riff about his age and had Stevie Wonder come on stage 15 minutes late because of it or something like that. Who knew?
Wow. Yeah. That's
what can you do? So what do we think of this team? Is it fantasy World Series? Fantasy playoffs? Reality playoffs? What do you think? What do you think?
I do not think. I think that's certainly playoff team. They're not gonna win. It's gonna be real hard to win the division because I can't believe that the Orioles don't have a streak in them. They haven't showed it in a long time. And maybe because of their closer situation, they just can't put together winning streaks. I don't know what's going on, but they really are underperforming, and that to me is their one opportunity. But I still think the likelihood is they're a wild card team. They get into they can get to the division series, and I see them. You know, blast me all you want, folks, but I see them as a one and done team because I don't think that they don't have a diverse enough offense. If they walk Judge and Soto do not for any reason excel, this team will not go anywhere. So you have the offense, which has weaknesses beyond these two guys. Um, their other best hitter, they don't even want to play him. They want to platoon him with a catcher who can't throw and is not known for his bat because he's good at framing pitches, and the pitchers seem to like him.
I loved when Boone said it's not going to be a straight platoon and Wells is going to get most of the playing time. And then as soon as Trevino is off the disabled list, he plays 3 out of the first 4 games. And not only that, between games 3 and game 4, there was an extra day off. So really 4 out of 5 days, Wells sat. And there was 4 games, and he sat for 3 of the 4 games. What a joke. And then, the original thing last weekend was, well, we'll play him on Saturday and Sunday. This way he doesn't have to play a day game after a night game. Well, didn't he play last night? Yes. And didn't he play this afternoon's game? Yes. So he played day game after a night game. So what kind of BS? I mean, they can't even stick to their same BS stories.
Yeah,
it just annoys the hell out of me.
It's a problem.
So,
and then I'll just finish. I'll finish.
And then this is why statistics are meaningless. You ready?
Yeah.
The Yankees are leading Major League Baseball in on-base percentage at .335. The Yankees are leading Major League Baseball in OPS at .774. And the Yankees, just so you know, are, I believe, second in runs scored in all of baseball.
Yeah, that's right. Only behind the Diamondbacks.
Yes, and the whole thing is a joke. It's a joke because let's look at if you dig deep, you'll see 3 things. You'll see Judge is at .485 on base, Soto's at .433 on base, and Wells is at .343 on base. Not counting Jazz, who's got a .361 on base in 14 games. But Jazz was getting on base when he was there too.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, everybody else is at Major League average, Trevino and Glaber, or below 300. And that's unacceptable. You can have these big slugger guys and 2 big sluggers, but you got to surround them with guys that are going to get on base so that they have people to knock in. I mean, Volpe's on base percentage is .299. Verdugo's is .290, and that's misleading because he hasn't hit Kramer. He's hit half of Kramer's weight over the last month and a half. Stanton has a .299 on base percentage, and then we get to the fun part. You ready? DJ LeMahieu, .263 on base percentage. Rice, .280. Cabrera, .293. It's ridiculous. And then when you get to OPS, league average is .713. Judge has a slugging of .722. His slugging is better than the league's OPS. But from a slugging perspective, the Yankees have 4 guys above major league average. Yeah. They got Judge at 1.187, Soto at 1.045, Stanton at 7.69, and Wells at 7.62. Not that they want to play Wells, right? Peraza doesn't count. He hasn't played enough. He's at 7.73. And Trevino is at 7.25. He hasn't really played enough either because of his injury. But, I mean, DJ LeMahieu's OPS is .512.
Well, yeah.
.512 OPS. That's 45th percentile. Verdugo's at .647, which is at the 80th percentile, but that's misleading because for the first 70 games, he was well above average.
That's right.
And his baseball card has him at like 90%. He's not even 100% OPS guy anyhow. Torres is at .660. Cabrera's at .665. Grisham's at .674. And Volpe's at .686, which is still 20 points higher than his OPS last year. Again, 2 guys carrying the load that makes the team stats look all wonky. It just doesn't bode well for them. I mean, and these guys' stats are better than Trout and Ohtani at any point in the Trout-Ohtani combination. I went looking up Trout and Ohtani and see where the Angels were. And Trout and Ohtani were nowhere near where Judge and Soto are. And then they didn't really have anything beyond them. But their beyond Trout and Ohtani was a little bit better than the Yankees. I mean, they had Pujols decent for a few decent years.
Yeah.
And a couple other guys that did well. But this is ridiculous. So then you talk to these guys and you hear them on TV and they're like, oh, they're second in the league in runs and first at OPS and first at on base. That's just garbage. It's just
Well,
garbage.
that's what's missing. There's sort of a lack of understanding of what's going to happen. Here's what's going to happen. And folks, we talk about this. It's an embarrassment of riches. I mean, it's partially embarrassing to talk about this because, and the second one, my son says to me, it's so hard to watch these guys year in, year out. I never see them win it all. And I said, yeah, but you know what? You could be the Mets. You could be
The White
the
Sox.
Pirates. You could be these teams who go years and years and years without winning. So it's embarrassing to say this because they do win. And that's my whole point that I'm going to make tonight, is that they do enough to get you there. They're good at getting you to the dance. They've got a beautiful car, and they pick you up and they bring you a beautiful flower, and they say all the right things to your mom and dad, and they put you in the car and they drive you to the dance, and you get in and you pay, and everybody looks at you and you think you're great, and then you get drunk and then fall asleep in the bathroom throwing up. That's what the Yankees always seem to do. Like, they're great at getting you there, but they don't get you through. And it really is bothersome to anybody who's watched them over the years. And Mike, you and I have been talking about this. We've been friends 20 years. And there's only been a couple of years where we ever felt
Really? Only
like
20 years? Feels like
it's 20. Can you believe it? 20 years. It feels a lot longer. I agree. But it's like we have seen this. We've argued it. They just never get you over the top. And the problem that we're going to see is they're going to get there. There's going to be a lot of buzz about it. Everyone's going to be focusing on Judge and Soto being historic. Judge is going to challenge this home. He's going to hit 60 home runs. Uh, Soto's on pace to hit 45 or so. I mean, it's just 40, 45. It's just incredible.
Well, I have a theory about the playoffs that's a little different than your take on the playoffs.
You think it's not a crapshoot?
I don't think the playoffs are a crapshoot. I think that the Yankees and the Dodgers, for that matter, have the same problem in the playoffs. Over 162 games, these analytics that they use work really well because it's a very large sample size. And when you get a large sample size, everybody eventually reverts to the mean, and you are what you are. But the problem is, and Verdugo's a good example of that, as is Volpe, there are times when guys get super hot. And when they get super hot, you don't run away from a hot craps table.
Yeah.
But the Yankees, they run away from a hot craps table so that when a guy gets really hot in the playoffs, I'm sorry, he can't play against this guy because analytically it says that, Trevino should play over Wells. If Wells is hot, he's got to play. It's just that in the playoffs, you can't use 162 game analytics in a 5-game or a 7-game series. It just doesn't work that way. You got to play hot hands. Now, granted, it's all about the pitching. Pitching is pitching is pitching, and bullpen is bullpen is bullpen. But when it comes to offense, you cannot go full analytics. You got to watch the game and see who's hot. Think about this. When the Yankees got Paul O'Neill from Cincinnati, right? They weren't letting him play against left-handers ever.
Because
Yankees saw something in him and said, you know what, he could probably hit the non-Randy Johnson left-handers. And they let him hit. The guy won 2 batting titles?
Yeah, and it was and he'll tell you that it was Piniella. Piniella sort of sandbagged him.
In Cincinnati?
In Cincinnati, it was Piniella. And Piniella said, this is who you are. They tried to get him into home runs, and that wasn't his game. And, a big mistake and misinterpretation of this guy who is, absolutely. If you don't see these guys for what they can be, and then you follow this analytic, and that was a time where they didn't even do that.
I'm surprised that Piniella would do that. It just drives me crazy in the playoffs. It does. Now this season's team, even if they break from analytics on the offense, there's one thing on the team that's is 100% not fixable in my mind during this season.
The bullpen.
And that's the bullpen. They're talking about Ian Hamilton. listen, that's not the answer. Scott Efros, not the answer. Lou Trevino, not the answer. The bullpen pitchers, 97% of them are fungible. They have a short lifespan.
Correct.
And that includes the closers. They have a very, very short lifespan. And Ian Hamilton's lifespan is over. He came here. They got a couple of years out of him. That was great. Look at Wandy Peralta. He stinks this year. The Yankees milked him for everything, maybe even held him a year too long, right? Marinaccio was great for a couple of years and now been down in the minors, although he did pitch great the last time he was up. The bullpen is not good, and their closer is not good. Now, there's really only two closers in all of baseball, as best as I can figure, anyhow, that are really good. And even they are not going to have the 20-year lifespan that Mariano Rivera. You're lucky if you get the 7 or 8 or 9-year lifespan that Yanks got and the Cubs got and the Reds got out of Aroldis Chapman. But, clearly Holmes is not the answer and they need a closer. But you can't count on a closer to last more than 3 to 5 years. They just don't. They just don't.
We got very spoiled, and that's wonderful. But you can't. But also, you can't keep lying to yourself.
Yep.
And what they do with Holmes is terrible. They look at these peripherals, and they seem to like. There's so many things that are not good about his season. 10 blown saves, absolutely horrifying. He wins 7 of those, and look at the season they're having. Look where they are now.
Or even 5 of them.
I mean, amazing. Nobody has blown more saves for the Yankees since Dave Righetti, and he wasn't a closer. It was the year that he came up, and I think they moved him over as a starter, and he didn't do well. But then he became a dominant closer later on. But still, even Righetti in his years of service, that was not his role. They gave it to him. He had no choice.
Yeah. I mean, Holmes is not a closer. We've said he's not a closer. What's funny now is that a lot of people are saying, "Oh, look, he's striking guys out now because he's up to 59 strikeouts in 51 innings." I have news for you. That's all because he struck out 6 guys in his last 2 outings.
And that's what's weird. He can go through that.
Yeah, I mean, there are times he's dominant. He was dominant for most of the first half of the season. Come on, the guy is still a top 10 closer in baseball, even with 10 blown saves. Did you see Hector Neris got released by the Cubs because I think he was 18 for 23 in saves and his ERA was 3.1 and he was averaging a little over a strikeout an inning. And guess who picked him up? Houston.
Yeah,
went right back to Houston.
That's right.
He's going to go back to being the dominant pitcher he was for Houston.
Yeah, well, sometimes it just takes a new approach. I mean, the Yankees do a great job of reclamation.
Right. This is the first year. This is the first year that Cashman struck out in the bullpen. I mean, I don't even care. Obviously one guy's already gone, and I wouldn't even care if they don't bring Leiter back next year.
All right. So who do they go to? Because here's the thing. We've talked about this in the show before. Who is there? I mean, do you like Weaver? Do you like any of these guys? Do you like Kramer?
I don't. That's the whole thing is I don't particularly like any of these guys, but right now the guys that look the best is Cousins,
Weaver, and Tonkin.
And Weaver. I'm not that high on Tonkin still. I mean, I have news for you. I know the Yankees gave him a contract, but I would trade him. If you can get anything for something, it's like getting
never do that. We always do this. They never. Why don't they ever? But they don't. They don't. They never trade the hot hand.
And there is no answer for the bullpen. I mean, the potential answer, and I don't. And we've talked about this briefly last week. Heal's a potential answer.
Yes, and now more than ever with the injury.
The injury, but also being that young, and also being a guy that walks as many guys as he does, that's a challenge.
That could be a problem, and that's it. That's an issue. He does walk to 66 walks this year. I mean, that's
66 walks in 109 innings is a lot of walks. 82 hits, but
nobody can hit his stuff. His stuff is electronic.
Did you watch the game today at all?
Not yet. I haven't on tape. I was trying not to, but Murray kept saying highlights.
So Torrey was in the booth because they were doing a skin cancer thing, and Torrey was in.
Skin cancer
they were talking about Rivera.
Was it skin cancer or prostate?
Skin. This was skin cancer. There was
I don't
no
want to talk
milking.
about it.
This was
Got
good.
my own problem.
They had skin cancer screening at the stadium today. 41,000 fans, and they screened 300 people. But that's a different story. That's sort of like we know we're
Wait,
getting
only 14 and under.
Right.
No, in the Yankees, only 14 and under can be screened.
No, it's well. The other part of it is it's typical Yankees. We know we're going to get 43,000, but only the first 18,000 fans can get a bobblehead. But anyhow, so they screened these guys. But the funniest thing was is they were talking about 96, right? 96. And they're talking about how Rivera pitched the eighth and ninth inning. And even Torrey joked, yeah, and then Wetland came along and, made us sweat every time he got out there. But he said, after that, it was lights out. Whenever I put Rivera in, the game was over. He had he said he had a couple of slumps, but never did he blow more than 5 saves in a season.
If
So,
I remember Mariano having, and it was always the same, he would blow one, colossally, like terrible, and then everybody would say, "Oh, maybe the magic is over." And what would Mariano always say?
it's one game.
He said, "It's one game, and tomorrow I'm gonna flip the script and start over again." And he would, and he'd be great. That was it. It was all mental. As physical, as amazing, as otherworldly as he was physically, his brain was, his head was what made him better. I think that's where it was.
Or as he would say, as he would say, is God gave me a gift and God allowed me to use it. That's what he would say. I don't get me started. But that's the biggest problem. I think even if they get away from analytics offensively, I think that the bullpen's going to kill them this year. I don't think they have a chance. The only thing they have going for them is that nobody except for Cleveland has a bullpen in the American League.
Yeah, they're terrible, and that's exactly it. And this is the great opportunity, is that the league sucks. There is nobody that scares you anymore.
Well, nobody's playing 600 baseball in all of baseball.
Yeah, I mean that's got to be a first.
It's one of the first times that's happened.
Maybe 68, the year of the pitcher, where none of the teams were any good. Nobody was hitting. Was that the year? Maybe 68.
I don't know, but right now nobody has a 600 winning percentage.
Incredible.
So that's not fixable, right? So what is fixable? Let's start with this. So I've been talking about stats. You talk about some of these stats that everybody likes to talk about. They talk about WAR. Well, guess what? The Yankees have the best WAR in center field and right field in baseball. You wonder why?
Why?
I wonder why.
Because you've got the two greatest players in the game.
So, but what's interesting is with the Trevino-Wells combination, the Yankees have the 4th best WAR of the catchers in all of baseball.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because Wells has been hitting, you have Wells' stats, I think, up there, right? But this is the best part. You ready? Yankees WAR last in baseball at first base, 27th at second base, 21st at first base, 22nd in left field, and 7th in pinch hitters, which is not awful. Bullpen, the Yankees bullpen is 12th at negative 0.4 WAR, whereas their starters are 0.9. So they're doing much better at the starters position.
Are you a big believer in BABIP?
Balls in, what is it, batting average of balls in play? Yeah. To a certain extent, I am. Because if you hit the ball hard in the same spot every time, there's going to be a guy there, right? Because the scouting report's going to say so. Now, you won't have a guy in short right field anymore on a shift, but if you're a guy who keeps consistently hitting hard ground balls to shortstop and hard ground balls to third base, you can hit it as hard as you want. Unless Gleyber Torres is playing that position, you're not going to get a hit. So I do believe that you do need to hit the ball hard, but you can't hit it to the same place every time.
Now, here's an amazing thing. DJ LeMahieu has a 216 BABIP this year. Or is it BABIP? Is it Babar or Babar?
And question is what's his exit velocity average? 47? Kramer has a higher pitching miles per hour than his average exit velocity.
I mean, Judge is hitting 381 with his on balls in play, and that seems.
And that's with over 100 strikeouts the Judge has.
Yeah, that's really amazing, isn't it? And I wonder what the league average is. You think probably about 280, 290
What, for balls in play?
balls in
Batting
play,
average
or
of
is it
balls in
over
play? Actually,
300?
I think I might have that. How's that? How do you like that? I might be able to pull that up pretty quick. But the batting average of balls in play matters a lot, and so does exit velocity. But like I said, the whole reason they got rid of the shift is because the lefties were all hitting the ball in the same exact spot as hard as they could.
Yeah.
Now, there's no shift this year, right? And they got rid of the shift last year. And last year, after they got rid of the shift, the OPS went down last year after the shift was taken away. So
Yeah,
it's
that seemed very odd to me. That was an outlier. I was expecting a big season from lefties last year, and I don't think he got it at all. It's funny. It's like they forgot how to hit. You know, the shift screwed up their ability to hit the ball, and it didn't matter where the players were. Get a load of this. I just saw something that blew me. Just guess, how many extra base hits does Judge have with this off the top of your head without thinking about the home runs?
74.
79. He's got 326 total bases this year.
Yeah, he's out of control.
I mean, really, it's probably the greatest season we've ever seen. It may very well be, because he's going to hit 330. How far off is he from the batting title right now?
Oh, what's his face is hitting like 360.
Quan is gone. Quan is done. He's down in the low threes again. Quan's been terrible for a month. But
what's
who else?
What's Seager that's hitting like 3, whatever it is?
I want to look at this.
I thought it was Seager that was hitting the best of anybody. So all right. So to fix the offense, if I was a Yankee running the Yankees, which will never happen, right?
I don't know. It's possible.
I would 100%. I mean, if there's as Kramer was telling us last week, he thinks that there's a service time issue related to why they won't bring up Dominguez. Mm-hmm. As soon as the Yankees get to that threshold this season where they can bring up Dominguez and still have him be eligible for the Rookie of the Year, I would just release Verdugo.
Yeah. It's Bobby Witt, by the way. Bobby Witt.
That's the guy I was thinking of. Bobby
Witt. So it's really him, because there's nobody even close to Judge. Right now, Judge is 20 points above everybody else. So
and what really Bobby Witt's 30 ahead of him, though, isn't he?
He's 20 points. He's 18 points ahead of him right now. Yeah. So he's going to have to get hot, and this guy's got to start to tank a little bit. But,
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry, go on. Go ahead.
So I just think that they that's fixable. The other thing that I think is fixable is, listen, Gleyber had a great day today. He really did. He saw like 28 pitches in his first 4 at-bats or some ridiculous amount. Drew a couple of walks. But I think it's time that perhaps he doesn't play every game as well. Now, the other problem is this: is there is also no answer at first base. What do they have? Donald Rumsfeld, or whatever his name is, down at AAA. I mean, it's not like Rizzo is going to be. It's not like Rizzo's going to solve the problem. It's not like Rizzo's going to solve the problem with regard to the offense at first base. The guy was terrible this year. Whether it's hangover from the concussion or not, no pun intended, but he's not the answer. Mm-hmm. He wasn't performing significantly better than he's not performing significantly better than DJ LeMahieu and Ben Rice. Ben Rice also, I'm done with Ben Rice. I hope everybody else is done with Ben Rice.
I think it's unfair to be done with him because
I meant for this season.
I think there's something there. I love his swing. I love the approach. It goes the other way really well, with authority. He's going to be I could see him being a doubles machine if he just it's just bad to put somebody into that kind of role that quickly. Teach him a new position.
I don't think there's a problem putting a guy into that role kind of quickly if he's Jason Dominguez status. But for this season, I mean,
Dominguez doesn't get up.
Him and Verdugo and DJ are automatic outs right now. They're automatic outs.
Yeah,
I think combined they're like 4 for 100. So I'm done with Rice for this season. Mm-hmm. I think it's time that they figure out what they want to do at first base, is it maybe Oswaldo has to go over there against right-handed pitching?
Rizzo's going to be
And
back. Rizzo's going to
what?
be back. Rizzo is starting
Rizzo and his
his
223 batting average, his 289 on base percentage,
I
his
don't
341
disagree, but I
slugging.
will bet you, I'll bet you right now, a Kramer bobblehead.
I will not give up my valuable Kramer bobblehead. Sorry.
All right, I will give you my Willie Randolph bobblehead.
Yeah, I like that one.
If the Yankees do not bring up when he's healthy and put him right back in the first base.
Oh no, they will definitely do that.
He's not. It's not even gonna be a question.
No, I agree. They're going to 100%.
And he will be, unless he's hurt, whether he's hitting 100 or 700, they will leave Rizzo in there for the playoffs. I guarantee you. That's the bet. Okay?
But there's nobody else. There is nobody else to play first base.
Yeah, so that's the problem. They don't have an option. They didn't. They could have done something to fix it. They didn't. You know, they could have done something. I mean, this is my question, and this is my whole point that we have a few minutes to talk about, if you don't mind. That the Yankees had a chance to fix all of this. They could have done a little bit more during the trade deadline and didn't.
Well, they weren't even in any talks for any first baseman.
Well, then that was a mistake because they started to feel pretty confident about Rice. Yeah. But they should have seen that this was that he would revert, because I don't even say revert, that he would underperform his skills for inexperience. You don't get a guy sooner or later. They're going to find him out. First of all, they found his holes, and he hasn't had time to adjust. He'll adjust if he wants to be a major leaguer. He'll adjust in the batting cages, experience, practice, and then in coming up in a couple of years. I mean, we could talk about Rizzo. We could talk about Volpe now. About that, Volpe is learning on the job.
I told you Volpe was going to go into a slump.
Yeah,
I saw it coming.
You called it. You did.
Can see it. And that what bothers me, and this is the same thing that bothers me with them saying, "Oh, the Yankees aren't good against lefties." It's easy to see why they're not good against lefties. Their right-handed hitters are not hitting. I mean, let's face facts. And then Verdugo, who actually had better splits against lefties, is not hitting anybody, so that doesn't matter. Torres has been awful. Stanton was hurt and is not even. He's been bad against lefties. And DJ's been about as bad a hitter as in all of baseball. But Volpe, I mean, you see his ass go into the third base dugout. He's flying open. And then why is he swinging so hard every single time? I mean, drive a ball, line drive a ball. Your bat was in the batting zone for so long at the early part of the season. Why all of a sudden now you're going back to this uppercut swing where you're making less and less contact? There's just no reason for that.
No,
and you can see it coming with him. You can see it coming.
Yeah. I don't see he's done. He's leaving. They're not going to give him a qualifying offer because he'll take it. He's going to play. He'll go. Glaber will pick up a 2. Kramer said he'll get a 3-year. I don't think so. I think he'll get a short contract to prove himself because he doesn't want to sign 3. He's still a young enough guy. He'll try to have a prove it season next year. So
I have news for you. I think the Yankees are thinking we're going to make him a qualifying offer so that we can get the draft pick compensation.
Oh, it's so stupid.
I mean, if Kramer, what's funny to me is Kramer believes the Yankees are holding Dominguez back so that they can have him be eligible for Rookie of the Year next year. Whereas if they bring him up and he's eligible for Rookie of the Year next year, they get extra draft picks.
It's a legitimate that point is made the rounds. I think
right, but if that's the point, why wouldn't they just make a qualifying offer to Torres to keep the draft pick compensation for him?
Because he'll take it. I mean, the difference between leaving, Dominguez out of a bunch of games with 2 weeks to go. They're going to bring him up at the first because even if he plays every inning of every game, he won't hit his minimum or his maximum.
Well, that's why I would release Verdugo as soon as that happens.
Yeah, and they're not going to do that for another reason. I'll tell you that in a minute. But the thing with Glaber is the solution, the outcome the likelihood of the bad outcome is great. He's going to accept the $20 million to go play with the Yankees another year because he'll think he can prove it here, rather than, so the Yankees might as well dump him, forget the draft choice compensation, and then move on to another plan. They've got guys in the mind. They've got options. It can't be that hard to find a second baseman who can play the infield, and then get on base, and maybe do it a little bit more. The Yankees have to get away from this power first second baseman approach. I mean, I just don't think that's necessary. I think next year, we'll talk about next season in about a month. We'll start talking about it then, because by then we're going to start thinking about the playoffs, and we'll go over next season what they're going to need to do. But I think there are a lot of options there. I just don't think the Yankees have any hope.
The Yankees have options at second base right now in Peraza.
Yes.
He's a stud defender. He almost beat out a routine ground ball yesterday.
Yeah, he is an excellent player. I like him. I like a lot of things about him. I just don't think that they've given him any chance.
I think when he comes back, I think they need to move Jazz into the leadoff spot. I mean, he had a 361 on base percentage.
I just don't understand.
I mean, he's not a high on base guy normally. He's a 330 on base guy, which is, guess what, better than anything they have. But he had a 361 on base percentage, batting sixth in the lineup, or with nobody hitting behind him. He was getting on base. They should put him at the top of the order.
Because, for obvious reason, nobody's going to want to put him on base.
No.
They're going to be petrified. You want to have a guy who's going to get on base, run. Well, the problem is they'll hold him up. He's not going to move. They won't give him a stolen base. He won't have a stolen base for the rest of the year. But
Right.
What they should do is put him in there, because they're not going to they're going to give him nothing but good stuff to hit. Everything's going to be beautiful, and he'll hit it. So unfortunately, they put in Glaber there. Yeah, Glaber had a good game today. Glaber always has a good game every week. Then tomorrow he'll do something stupid, and then we'll be back to the same argument. Why is he playing? They might as well do this. Move. I was very surprised to see Jazz batting fifth or sixth. It just didn't make sense to me. Other than they just have no confidence in anybody in the middle of the order.
There was no reason to have anybody else batting there because they couldn't. And I think they should just stick Volpe in the 9-hole and let him be there, even if he hits 900 the rest of the season. Right. Let him sit down there, because it's like having a second leadoff guy like the olden days when Jeter started out batting ninth, and then they had all these other guys batting ninth that were like second leadoff guys that were better than number 9 hitters, which I think Volpe better than a number 9 hitter, but just have him down there. It's not like he's overproducing and they need to move him around to drive in runs.
Agreed. Now, we have talked a lot today about individual steps that need to be taken, problems with the players and the team. We have a question from a fan.
Go ahead.
About, more globally about who their competition is. So let's play this. This is from G-Man in South Carolina.
What team or teams do you think are the most challenging for the Yanks going to the World Series?
Good question. I'll leave it to you.
I think it's the same team it always is, because they're red hot and they still haven't had a top 5 player in baseball, hasn't played for them for over 2 months, which has killed my fantasy team, and that's the Houston Astros.
Yes, I'm with you. I believe it totally. Until they get by Houston, they can't prove that they're the real deal. I mean, this thing, real or fantasy, the fantasy is believing that they can get by Houston. They get by Houston, then all bets are off. If the Yankees can beat Houston, I have absolute faith they can win the World Series.
Well, this is the whole thing to me. To me, I think they can beat anybody, but they could also lose to anybody. But with regard to Houston, it's as much mental as it is anything. The best opportunity to beat Houston is this year, where they have no starting. Their starting pitching is very beat up and not good. They do have. When I said they had no bullpen before, I was a little bit wrong. They do have decent players in their bullpen, and now that with Neris back, they'll probably get better again. But Hader has his struggles in the playoffs. So, we'll see what happens with that. But Hader is one of the top closers in baseball, top 2 closers in baseball. But Houston is going to be the toughest team for them to beat because of their pedigree. They just seem to win. Altuve, There's never a drop-off in Altuve. There's never a drop-off in Bregman. There's never a drop-off in Alvarez. There's never a drop-off in Tucker when they get to the playoffs with regard to their offense.
They always, because those guys, they have so many ways to beat you.
Mm-hmm.
Unlike the Yankees, whose guys, if Soto, if Judge don't come in at, with 1,191 OPS, and they start going 1 for 12, 3 strikeouts, we're dead. Dead in the water.
I think it's less likely that Soto does that. Judge has done that, but there's also the possibility that Stanton continues, if healthy, when he's been healthy in the playoffs. He's been a very good playoff performer.
He has come through, especially against teams like the Red Sox. Very strong when they played them. So listen, I think that's
I think Seattle. So, I think Seattle could beat anybody because they've got great starting pitching.
Their starting is ridiculous.
The Cleveland is a good team. Again, the Yankees don't seem to fear them. Minnesota's having a great year. The Yankees don't seem to fear them. Kansas City's having a great year. I mean, they're going to get 2 wild cards out of the Central this year.
Yeah,
and that's assuming that the Yankees can, hold off and not. I mean, they have a 7-game lead now over the Red Sox, who are the first team out of the wild card right now, and the Red Sox are 3.5 out of the wild card. The Yankees could lose to the Red Sox just because it's the Red Sox. So and then the Orioles, you never know what you're going to get with these teams that are that young. The Orioles, as much as we said that Cashman didn't want to deal his prospects, he deals prospects much more than Elias does down in Baltimore. Mm-hmm. But, you're never going to know what you're going to get with the Baltimore or Kansas City in the playoffs because they're so young. Minnesota, Yankees have a way of beating them. Cleveland, who knows? But Houston, those guys just don't drop off. They don't drop off offensively in the playoffs. This year, though, they don't have the pitching that they've had in the past.
Yeah, that's the strength. That's the problem. How's their closing situation?
In Houston?
Yeah.
It's Hader. He's great.
Doing?
He's great, but he's had playoff challenges, whether it was in Milwaukee or in San Diego. He's had playoff challenges.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. And they still have, what's his face? Who was the closer before him? Threw the big curveball. He's now the setup guy. And they also
Cano.
No, Cano is. You mean Abreu?
Oh, you're saying that's the Orioles.
Yeah, I'm just talking about Abreu, who's the other guy that's on the Astros. Abreu, Harris, it's Hader, and what's the guy's name that was the closer before they got Hader? Presley, who's I think is hurt, but they have a decent bullpen. But
they are.
But their bullpen issue is Hader is not a playoff performer.
It is Houston, and then Houston again. And then if they get by Houston, I'll worry about the Dodgers.
Well, I'd like to see them. Right now, I'm worried about them beating anybody. There's nobody. It's not like even if they play Minnesota, Minnesota hasn't beaten them in 874 years. Yeah. Even if they play Minnesota, I wouldn't be so sure that they're going to beat Minnesota. I'd feel better about playing Minnesota than I would playing Houston for sure. But right now, the way the team is constructed, you don't know what's going to happen because the bullpen, they could even be winning in the bullpen so bad that they could blow any game. But Houston is definitely the team to beat in the American League, especially as hot as they are. I mean, everybody else cooled off. Houston got red hot, and they still are missing a top 5 player in all of baseball in Tucker.
Mm-hmm.
So Houston's the team there, Mr. G-Man from South Carolina.
Thank you, Gustavo.
Nikki Haley would agree with us.
Appreciate it a lot. So the thing I want to talk to you about is we've moved beyond a little bit, but is this just who they are? Is this now the Yankee business model to do what to be having this conversation with a team with a $300 million payroll, with a manager that is generally disliked,
by the fans, he's disliked
by the fans, and I got to tell you, a general manager who needs to be either fired and won't be, or promoted so he's out of the picture, kind of like Billy Beane. It would be nice to have somebody who. It would be nice to have a new approach, but for whatever reason, the Yankees don't seem to do that. But they've got this problem, and I keep wondering, why is it that they don't seem to go over. They don't finish the job. Like they always
Well,
seem.
I think this year they're not going to finish the job because of the bullpen. But generally speaking, I think they don't finish the job because they get into the analytics too much. Like I said earlier, Dodgers and the Yankees have the same problem.
Correct.
I do think,
Correct.
though, I do think there's a roster construction problem, which, they tried to address by adding Verdugo and adding Soto and adding the lefties that Kramer wanted. Right? Grisham was an icing on the cake left over. They had to take on the contract. And they tried to balance the lineup a little bit better lefty righty, and it didn't make any damn bit of difference.
All right.
I think that Verdugo, if Verdugo goes back to if Verdugo's stats rise to the point of the back of his baseball card, so that his stats at the end of the season look right, he's going to have a great September because right now he's worse than the back of his baseball card.
Yeah. Well, we'll see.
And this year, but
he's certainly
just
due.
He's due more than Kramer. And Kramer's been pregnant for 12 years. I just, the $300 million payroll, I don't care that they don't go over the cone threshold. My problem with the $300 million payroll that the Yankees have is not the top end guys. It's not if they pay Soto. It's not that they paid Cole. It's not that they paid Judge. It's that these middle guys, they've made bad choices on the middle guys, whether it be due to injury or just drop off the end of the planet like DJ LeMahieu. And then the last but not least is hold on to guys too long. Torres, right? Holding on to guys for more time than they should have. They held on to Sanchez too long. They held on to Torres too long. They held on to a lot of the bullpen pieces for too long. That's the other half of it is that the management of the middle of the roster. And then, clearly, even though last year I was jumping up and down and asking for, what was the guy's name, the left-handed outfielder they traded to Cleveland? Center fielder.
The Yankees traded?
Yeah, he was a guy. No, not Hicks. I was clamoring for him to be up last year, and then they traded him this offseason. Whatever.
Florial.
L'Oreal, he turned out to be nothing. He's basically out of baseball. But I'd like to see
Maybe
them
they're right about these guys. Maybe they're right. Maybe they see something.
But I'd like to see them give. There's no reason not to give Peraza a chance. There's no reason. Now, obviously, he's injured, so you can't give Pereira a chance. But there's no reason to give those guys a better run. I know Pereira was terrible last year, and Peraza was terrible last year. But the year before that, they were both good. Now Pereira's hurt, so I have no problem. You can't bring back a guy who has an UCL injury. But Peraza deserves the shot. And then supposedly they've got two guys in Arias and Lombard Jr., who are middle infield studs. They've got
Durbin.
Another guy.
How about Caleb Durbin?
Well, Durbin came out of nowhere. He's not even ranked, but he's having a great year down there.
Well, he's bad. He's healthy again. I think he had a hand problem, but the guy is a tank.
Right. There's no reason that he shouldn't be given a shot, although he's not on the 40-man. And then, they have this other international signing guy that's like 18 years old. That's,
years
baby
away.
Dominguez. So, at some point, if these guys are not that good, trade them earlier.
This seems to be the problem. And I'm glad you brought it up because they seem right about a lot of these guys when they leave. They leave them and there's nothing left. Like, Florial. Florial. A lot of the guys that they trade don't go on to become very much. They seem to overhype the guys, and then they fall out of love with them, and then they don't know what to do with them, and they leave them and let them rot. They call it prospect rot. They've got a lot of that going on.
They have a lot of prospect rot. I think that's a great term, and I think that's what happens to their guys, that they don't give them a shot, and then they don't get any better.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. I mean,
but I think what happens here, this is something that concerns me every year. And then what I also think is possible, and I bring it up 1,000 times, and I just think this is what they want to do. Like they believe in analytics. They believe in getting, which is funny. They believe in analytics, but they believe in the hot hand in the playoffs. Those two things
Yankees
do
don't
not
believe in the hot hand in the playoffs.
They do. No, because that's why they always feel that they could just catch fire.
Oh, they believe the team is going to catch fire. Yeah.
Steamroll. And that's that those things don't work together. So because if they did, they would make the big move. And they've stopped making the big moves. Like, and you got to think that they're afraid of it after 22. They had Montas, Trevino, Benintendi, Efros, and Bader. All were injured and all underperformed and all gone. Trevino, I guess, is not, but he's on his 19th rehab assignment. 21, you had Gallo, Rizzo, Holmes, and Wandy, which was actually, aside from Gallo, a very good, deadline.
Mm-hmm.
You had in 17, you had Frazier, David. You had Frazier shortstop, third base. You had David Robertson, Todd Frazier. You had David Robertson. You had Canely and Gray. Now Gray didn't work out, but that was unfortunate.
Gray's fault. That's Gray's fault. And
then the year, remember they had Britton, Lynn, and Voigt that all came in the same. That was the 18. I'm looking back to 19. They had Encarnacion. They had they had Prado and Headley in 14. And then, of course, the greatest of all, the 2000 edition of Justice. The guys who came in and just turned the season around for them, did something that was so great. Justice, who was done like right after, but was great right to that point. They don't do that anymore. Why don't they do it? I know there's a reason. A lot of times the great players like that aren't available because everybody's in it now with all the wild card options. But, they just seem to think, what, let's get them. I'm just going to leave this with you and you tell me what you think. They get you to the point. Like I said, they get you to the dance looking good. And then they just kind of think, oh, well, we got them this far. Let's see what they've got. And if they don't, okay, we'll do better in the offseason, see what we can do to fix some of the holes. But they don't seem to go the distance. They didn't go up for the closer this year. That would have been, to me, a closer would have been absolute nails.
Yeah,
they didn't do it.
I agree. I'm really curious.
Why is that?
I'm curious what Miami wanted that the Yankees didn't.
But back to the point is, what are they thinking? Do they have an absolute full house every night. They don't need to be a World Series team anymore. And that's because the fans are not going to stop showing up. You said it the other day in a text to me. You said the Yankees will never stop. Yankees will never lose their 40,000, a game.
No, because they're always going to be in it. They're always going to be competitive.
Because they're always going to be competitive. What if they have 2 or 3 years where they just can't anymore, where they stink? Where let's just say they're 500 teams or a little bit below for 3 years in a row. Do fans start showing up?
I think one season they could survive, a half of the next season they could survive, and then you'd start seeing probably 25,000 at the games instead of 40,000 at the games.
So the 1980s all over again.
Well, not even the 1980s. They didn't even draw that much, I would bet.
No, they would average 30 a game.
Okay.
They'll be.
So that's. But I don't ever see them being bad enough for 2 consecutive seasons that they're going to be below 500. Look at this year. Last year they won 82 and 80, and this year they're going to finish 91 and 70.
Can I ask you, how is it that they're able to win? If things just don't work out just right, Judge goes down for 50.
Well, that's how it's going to happen.
They signed Soto. Soto goes down for 50. I mean, this is terrible stuff. But imagine if they lost both of these guys for some period of a season. And then they lost, and then you see Cole beginning to decline. Mm-hmm. You see, I think he already has. I think we're seeing the beginning of his decline. And
I don't.
I think he's great, but I think we're beginning to see that he's not going to be a 250 strikeout pitcher forever.
Well, nobody is, but I think he's got the body type and the
hopefully, but I wouldn't be surprised.
And the arm. He doesn't have the arm issues. I think he's going to last into his late 30s, not necessarily his 40s, but his late 30s.
He's not going to be this. He won't be this guy. You know what? That just doesn't happen. I could see him being David Cone towards the end when he changes himself and gives up his fastball. He's not throwing 98. Can Cole be this good at 92? You know,
I don't know.
That's the question.
I think Cole's got 3 more years as a Cy Young contender left in him for sure. I think he's got 3 years left. I think that,
Yeah,
and then
about
you're
right.
talking. So you're talking about if something bad happens and all these guys get injured, right? And they have a terrible season.
Because there's
All right.
nobody else. They don't have a lot of depth
Right.
beyond
They will
that.
have let's if those things all happen, the Yankees will win 75 games at best. But the next season, they're all back. So there's no reason that it's going to happen in consecutive seasons. That's
All right,
what
but
I'm
I'm
saying is it
thinking
won't happen in consecutive seasons.
you've got a 32-year-old Judge. What happens when Judge is 35 and 36 and he starts hitting 32 home runs a year instead of 52 or 60?
Well,
What happens when that
that's
becomes?
like I said also in the text stream. Judge is not like Stanton's injuries. Judge's injuries have been freakish. Hit by pitch, break a hand, step on a cement block, break a leg. You know, those are not the type of injuries. He's not having oblique injuries. He's not having hamstring injuries. He's not having
Soft
those
tissue
type of
stuff. He's
injuries.
not a soft tissue disaster.
He's not a soft tissue guy like Stanton is. Soto's 25, so you got 10 years before you got to start thinking about.
And that's
stuff.
why you sign Soto.
Yes, exactly.
That's
and
why.
I think Cole is the type of pitcher that's going to last into his past his 36, 37. I don't think he's going to be 35 and done like Cone was. I think he's 36, 37. His mechanics, his arm.
Why do you think Cone was done at 35?
Well, Cone was relatively done at 35, but Cone lived a lifestyle that was probably similar to your lifestyle and my lifestyle in college. Definitely mine.
And he'll tell you that. He talks about it.
He'll tell you that.
He told me about that in the bullpen one.
But the question then becomes, can the Yankees backfill with Jones and Dominguez and Arias and Rice and Warren and Wells and Pereira and Hampton? Can those guys backfill for 4 or 5 years where they're making less than $5 million? And that's the question. Can they do it? Right now, the Yankees minor league, there's no young Yankee. Wells is it right now. That's it. I mean, Peraza could be it. We don't know. Pereira could be it. We don't know. Dominguez looked like he was it. Hopefully he is it. And Jones is having not a good season, although he's red hot right now. Jones is not having a good season at Double-A.
I have a question for you.
6.
You only have 2 minutes.
6.
If the Yankees are holding on to Dominguez because they want him to get win a World Series, a Rookie of the Year.
Well, top 5 or top 10 or whatever he has to be. Yeah.
Why aren't they doing the same thing for Wells?
Well, Wells they needed to. Wells is older, and Wells they had no choice. They had no choice with Wells.
Let him play.
They should. Yeah, they had no choice with Wells this year because who else was going to be on the team as a catcher? Higgy was gone.
I guess also Wells is no longer giving up. Wells doesn't have an eligibility issue anymore.
Well, this year is his year to be the Rookie of the Year.
He's got a chance. It's not like
think about it. Heel was on the team in 2021, but it's 2024, and he might be the leading candidate for Rookie of the Year in the American League.
I'm going to make a bet. I told you I'm not going to bet my Willie Randolph. Okay. But I will bet you a couple of fine beverages in Monterey that Wells is going to be the Rookie of the Year.
I won't take that bet because it's possible.
Wells could do it.
Oh, he absolutely could if he keeps. I mean, the guy's hitting. You have the stats in front of you for Wells. He's hitting like 320 his last 30 games. The Yankees, of course, the Yankees have to play him, which we talked about earlier.
Like they're idiotic that they're not. But let's take a look at his.
Hey, listen.
So far.
I guess Cole can pitch to him because he pitched a good game today.
Yeah, I mean that annoys me. Like they got to get over that stuff. Okay, it's not the delta. Jorge Posada
still doesn't talk to AJ Burnett.
All right, so Wells hitting 255. So let's just look at the last. That's the season. But let's take a look at the last 30 games.
Right.
Wells is hit. What's that about? Why am I?
And before we go, I want to ask you one question about Old Timers Day. I'll wait for you.
You love that conversation. All right.
Well, no, there's something came up today on the broadcast, and then something came up on the radio that was different than the broadcast.
All right.
About the
So I'm not sure why I'm not being given a chance to see this, but
All right.
all right. So maybe you can find it, but I can't seem to get it. Sorry, no results.
I'm not even looking, to be honest with you.
All right, so go ahead. Let's just say Wells is hitting well over 300.
Oh, he's hitting like 320, while Trevino was hurt.
And he's on pace. Let's just see what he's going to do this year. But just to say, season as a whole, right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, right now he's got 9 homers and 36 RBIs. He's hitting 254 with 419 OPS, a 762 OPS. So, I mean, quite frankly, if he finishes the season for some reason with 14 homers and 50 RBIs and hits 265, I think he'll beat him in the Rookie of the Year still.
All right, hits 270.
Well, if he goes up to 270 by the end of the year, he's going to have more than 50 RBIs.
I mean, nobody cares about our batting average anyway anymore. So I think that he is, if he hits, he's got 7 home runs, 9 home runs,
9 homers, 36 RBIs.
All right, and he tends to hit them in big moments. He's a big moment guy. I like him, and I love the walks. I love the on base percentage. I like everything about him.
He's a very good at bat.
All right, so what was your question? We're at 8:01.
It's Old Timers Day, which anybody who's watching should know there is no Old Timers game. So on TV and on the Michael Kay show, they said that Gardner's not going to Old Timers Day because he's got family obligations. On the radio, on Brandon Turney's show this morning on FAN,
I think I know what you're going to say.
He was saying he's not going because he's pissed at the Yankees. And they ended his career.
What?
That the Yankees just basically discarded him, told him they'd bring him back, and then didn't bring him back.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm sure he moved back down to South Carolina because I just don't see him living in New York with his redneck ways.
So if all of our rednecks listeners out there, especially from the South, we've got some people now who are living in the South who should be a little bit nicer.
Velocity's in North Carolina.
We appreciate it. So no, I think that I heard that he was off the grid. I heard he's off the grid.
Well, he's with his family. But whatever, I don't care. The fact there's no Old Timers game is all Derek Jeter's fault too. I'm sure
because he would never put the uniform on and do it. This is the only way to get him out.
Sturts told us he would never put the uniform on and play a game again, except for a Progressive in a commercial. So I mean,
and he doesn't wear Yankees.
He doesn't wear Yankees. He wears his Yankee shirt over his Dockers or whatever he wears.
I just like to know, why would anybody spend that much money?
It's not special anymore. There's no special. There's no specialness about.
For those of you among our younger folks, listeners, the 8 of you maybe, that have never been to a Yankee Old Timers Day. In the old days, it was great. It was, boy, what a hat head you have.
I know.
Ooh, doctor, do not do that again on one of our future shows. Hat on or hat off. Oh God, now we got sacked. All right, so I think the key is that what they've done is terrible, because they've taken a really enjoyable event that I love to see. I would love when Reggie would get up and try to hit one out. I remember seeing. Get a load of this. I saw Mickey Mantle.
So did I.
Bat at an Old Timers.
Mickey Mantle bat. I know Joe DiMaggio never saw bat, but I saw Mickey Mantle bat at Old Timers Day. So a whole bunch of stuff.
It was great, and taking this away is just, I don't know what the reason, other than you're right. It's probably
you're also. I think it's Jeter, but there's also a team that averages. They average 43,000 fans a game. But it's bobblehead day, and we're only going to get bobbleheads to the first 18,000 that come in.
Or how about the skin cancer day, and they only screen the first 14 and under? Only 14 and
300
under.
people. Well, listen, it's still better. Listen, I worked last night for the A's. It was $2 tickets, $1 hot dogs.
Wow.
And we didn't draw 9,000 fans.
Wow. You got to go back to the free hooker night. That to me is what's missing. Free hookers. Didn't they have that once? And they had
they did not have free hookers. They just had a sex. They just had the sex show in left field in the third deck. Just so you know.
It was private. Nobody was there. There are worse hotels to go to.
Oh, in that area, there are worse hotels to go to.
On that note,
we are
will sign
done.
off.
Put a fork in us on that note. We will
Yes.
see you guys next week. We'll try and figure out what we want to talk to. We may have a guest next week because next week we need to have what's his face on.
I have to talk to you about next week. I have an engagement, so you may need to have somebody else.
Aren't you married? What are you, Mormon all of a
I'm
sudden?
getting married. No, I actually have an open house on Thursday night for a new listing of mine, and I have to do that night.
So then why don't we do an open house and you could sell it to some of our fans?
All 8 of you. You're all welcome to come in. It's a beautiful apartment.
All right, we'll figure it out this week. I'll talk to you this week. 2 weeks to Monterey. 2 weeks from tonight. We're in Monterey, young ladies.
2 weeks. I'm in.
All right. Good night and good luck to all of you. Good luck in prison.